Every apocalypse on TV wants you to think you'd die, and honestly, most of them are right. But some are way more survivable than others, and today I'm ranking every major TV show apocalypse by how likely I'd actually be to make it out alive. Starting with the one where I absolutely, definitively would not: The Last of Us. Most zombie apocalypses give you a fighting chance. Get a weapon, find shelter, avoid the bitey ones, and you're at least in the game. The Last of Us doesn't care about your plan, because in this world, you can die just by breathing. The cordyceps fungus, a mutated strain that jumped from South American crops, wiped out roughly 60% of humanity during the initial outbreak, and the infected only get worse over time. Runners show up within 2 days, fast, aggressive, and completely unhinged. Give it a few weeks, and you get stalkers, which hide in the dark and ambush you like they've been watching horror movies for tips. Then, after a year, clickers emerge, completely blind, navigating through echolocation, and strong enough to rip your jaw apart with their hands. But here's the thing that makes this universe truly hopeless. The fungus doesn't need a host to kill you. It produces airborne spores in enclosed spaces. Walk into the wrong building without a gas mask and you're done. No bite required. You just inhaled wrong and now fungus is growing in your brain. Every subway tunnel, every basement, every underground structure is a permanent death trap. And even if you dodge all of that, the human world isn't much better. 20 years after the outbreak, quarantine zones are run by authoritarian military regimes, and everything outside those walls is controlled by people who'll kill you for a can of peaches. There's no vaccine. There never will be. The fungus rewires your entire neurology. There is no fix. This is the nightmare tier. But at least the infected here take a year to become their worst selves. The next apocalypse doesn't give you nearly that long. All of us are dead. Here's the thing about most zombie apocalypses. You get time. You get a day, maybe 2, to figure out what's happening. Grab your stuff and make a decision. The Jonas virus doesn't give you that. It gives you hours. And by the time you realize something is wrong, half the people in your building are already turning. The virus itself is genuinely insane. A biology teacher named Lee Byung-chan engineered it on purpose, using Toxoplasma gondii combined with high testosterone extracted from lab hamsters. The goal was to remove fear from the human brain and replace it with pure rage by targeting the amygdala. So this isn't some accidental mutation. A guy sat down, thought about it, and built a pathogen specifically designed to turn people into rage machines. Cool. Add that to the list. Once you're infected, your body temperature drops, your nose starts bleeding, your veins protrude, your eyes go completely red, and most of your organs just shut down. Not over weeks, hours. The virus kills everything inside you except itself, and what's left is a mindless, blood-craving animal that will literally die without fresh human blood. These aren't zombies that wander around groaning. They need you, biologically. You are their food source, their oxygen, their everything. Now put that inside Hyosan High School, a densely packed building full of teenagers where every hallway is a choke point and every exit is a bottleneck. 13 students out of roughly 24 in Class 2-5 survived the initial outbreak, and they only managed that by quarantining immediately. Because this was a completely novel engineered pathogen, zero existing immune response worked against it. Your body had never seen anything like it and had absolutely no answer. Compare that to something like The Last of Us, where cordyceps kills you passively through spores you accidentally breathe in. The Jonas virus sprints at you, screaming, with red eyes and a biological need to drain your blood, which is, not ideal. But if the speed of transformation is what scares you here, wait until you see what happens when the zombies don't even need to bite you to ruin your life. Black Summer. Here's the thing about most zombie apocalypses. You get time. You get a grace period where the military shows up, somebody builds a wall, and there's at least a can of beans somewhere with your name on it. Black Summer gives you none of that. Zero. 6 weeks into the ZN1 outbreak, and every single piece of infrastructure humans ever built has already failed. No electricity, no clean water, no hospitals, no food distribution, no organized defense of any kind. Just you, whatever you're carrying, and a world that wants you dead from every possible direction. And the zombies here aren't the slow, shuffling, jog lightly in the other direction type. These are rage zombies. Fast, aggressive, relentless predators that will sprint at you like you owe them money. Once one spots you, that's it. You're running or you're dying, and honestly, you're probably doing both. But here's where it gets really fun. The ZN1 virus has a 99.9% infection rate. A bite, a scratch, even infected material getting into an open wound, and you're done. The active agent, necrosepsis, triggers cytokine storms and organ failure. You're dead within 48 hours. In a world with functioning hospitals, that's terrifying. In a world where the closest thing to medical care is a stranger with a dirty rag, that's a guaranteed death sentence. You could trip over a rock, scrape your knee near the wrong puddle, and that's your whole survival story wrapped up. And somehow, the infected aren't even the biggest problem. The human threat in Black Summer is arguably worse than the zombies. Every single person you meet is a real-time calculation. Are they an ally? Are they about to kill you for your backpack? You don't know. You can't know. There's no authority, no law, no social contract. Organized violence becomes the primary method of getting resources. And Rose, the show's central character, has to make brutal decisions navigating territory where the humans are just as likely to kill her as the infected are. This is the apocalypse where you're never safe from anything. Not the zombies, not the people, not even a paper cut. But at least the zombies here are just fast and angry. Wait until you see what happens when the undead show up in feudal Korea. Kingdom. Here's a fun one. The zombie apocalypse in Kingdom wasn't caused by a lab accident, a mysterious virus, or some ancient curse nobody saw coming. It was caused on purpose, by the government. The Joseon court deliberately used a resurrection plant, a small purple flower growing in cold mountain regions, to reanimate the dead king's corpse long enough for the queen regent to secure an heir to the throne. That's it. That's the reason thousands of people died screaming. A political power grab. The flower itself isn't even the real problem. It's a host for parasitic worms that enter the bloodstream and hijack the nervous system, reanimating corpses into flesh-eating predators. And here's the thing. These worms actually have exploitable weaknesses. They hate warm weather. They hate water. If you get bitten, you can literally soak the wound in water and kill the worms before they reach your brain. Fireworks, too. On paper, this sounds incredibly manageable. But you're not fighting these things with flamethrowers and fire hoses. You're in feudal Korea. No firearms, no electrical warning systems, no rapid transportation, no way to send a text that says, hey, the dead are walking, maybe close the gates. Your best military tactics were designed for human opponents who feel pain and respond to fear. Zombies do neither of those things, and it gets worse over time. Early infections caused a fever stage before transformation, giving people hours to respond. But as the worms evolved, later infected transformed immediately upon being bitten. Strategies that worked in week 1 became suicide by week 3. The learning curve doesn't just steepen, it inverts entirely. Smaller garrisons relied on wooden palisades that zombie hordes could literally tip over by pushing against them with sheer mass. Even stone fortifications buckled under sustained pressure. You're building pit traps and sharpening sticks while the enemy multiplies exponentially with every person they kill. This is a survivable apocalypse trapped in the wrong century. You have every tool you need to win, conceptually. Water, fire, warm weather. But implementing any of those solutions with pre-industrial technology while an evolving parasitic horde crashes against your wooden fence is, not ideal. And at least in Kingdom, the zombies have a biological off switch. The walkers in The Walking Dead don't even give you that luxury. The Walking Dead. Here's the thing about The Walking Dead that still messes with people years later. You're already infected. Everyone is. Every single living human on the planet carries the wildfire virus, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. The virus went airborne before anyone even knew what was happening. The CDC discovered it on April 16, 2010, and by August 25th, it was declared a full-blown pandemic. 4 months. That's all it took to infect the entire human race. And this changes everything about how you think about survival. In most zombie apocalypses, the goal is simple. Don't get bitten. But in The Walking Dead, the bite isn't what infects you. You're already infected. The bite just gives you necrosepsis, which causes a cytokine storm, hemorrhages your adrenal glands, shuts down your brain and organs, and kills you within about 48 hours. Then the virus you were already carrying reanimates you. Die from anything? A heart attack, a fall, a bad infection, and you come back. The only thing that stops it is destroying the brain, which is, not ideal. But here's where it gets genuinely horrifying. The government's contingency plan, Operation Cobalt, wasn't to save civilians. It was to kill them. Military personnel were ordered to humanely terminate everyone inside the safe zones and withdraw to bases. They authorized napalm strikes on entire cities. Chicago got so bad they considered nuclear strikes. The military was literally firebombing its own population centers while telling people the safe zones would protect them. And then, the military collapsed. Desertion rates climbed daily after Cobalt. Safe zones were abandoned and overrun. The entire institutional structure of the United States just evaporated. So why am I not ranking this dead last? Because people rebuild. That's the key. The walkers are slow, predictable, and manageable in small numbers. Survivors formed real communities. Alexandria, Hilltop, the Kingdom, Oceanside. They built militia alliances, restarted agriculture, and fought off organized human threats like the Saviors. It's brutal, and the human enemies are genuinely worse than the zombies. But there's a path forward. You can build walls, you can grow food, you can survive this one if you make it through the initial collapse. But if you think the main timeline is rough, wait until you see what it looked like on day 1 in Los Angeles. Fear the Walking Dead. This is the one apocalypse on the list where your biggest advantage isn't a weapon or a fortress. It's a head start. Fear the Walking Dead takes place during the earliest days of the wildfire outbreak in Los Angeles, and the key detail that changes everything is this. The lights are still on. The roads still work. Stores still have food on the shelves. Civilization is standing. It's just starting to wobble. And that wobble happens fast. A guy involved in a highway crash attacks an EMT. California Highway Patrol tries to take him down with batons, fails, and opens fire. The whole thing gets captured by news helicopters, goes viral instantly, and instead of triggering an organized evacuation, it sparks a full-scale riot in downtown LA. Infected are biting people in the middle of the chaos. And nobody even notices because everyone's too busy flipping cars and throwing bottles. Here's where it gets dark. The military rolls in and establishes safe zones across the LA basin, each surrounded by fenced-off exclusion perimeters. Sounds reasonable, right? Except outside those zones, the military is executing people indiscriminately. Infected, uninfected, doesn't matter. If you're on the wrong side of the line, you're dead. At one location, roughly 2,000 infected are chained up inside the Los Angeles Memorial Sports Arena like livestock, just waiting for someone to wander too close, which is, not ideal. By day 15, Los Angeles has 0 man-made lights visible. None. The entire city goes dark, and then the military firebombs it, just levels the whole thing from the air in a desperate containment attempt. The survivors who make it out do so by boat, watching the city burn behind them as they flee into the Pacific. So why do I rank this slightly more survivable than the main Walking Dead timeline? Because the window exists. It's narrow, maybe a few days at most, but if you recognize what's happening before the riots start, before the military locks down the zones, before Operation Cobalt turns Los Angeles into a crematorium, you can get out. You have a functioning car, functioning roads, and functioning grocery stores. The trick is using it before everyone else panics and the military decides you're expendable. The boat escape is the play. Early awareness plus mobility equals survival. Hesitate for even a day, and you're locked inside a safe zone watching soldiers decide who lives and who doesn't. But if you think a collapsing city is claustrophobic, wait until you're trapped inside a television studio with nowhere to run at all. Dead set. Here's a concept so good it's almost annoying nobody thought of it sooner. Take the most surveilled, most isolated building in Britain, a Big Brother house during a live eviction, and drop a zombie apocalypse on top of it. The housemates don't know. The production staff barely knows. Everyone's so wrapped up in the spectacle of reality television that the actual end of the world is happening outside and nobody thinks to check. And that accidental ignorance, it saves their lives. Temporarily, the Big Brother house was never designed to keep anything out. It was designed to keep people in, to film them, to turn their worst impulses into entertainment. But the isolation that makes good TV also makes a halfway decent fortress. Thick walls, limited entry points, cameras everywhere. When the outbreak hits during a live eviction night, the doors are sealed, the outside world is collapsing, and the housemates are arguing about who gets voted off. It's genuinely beautiful in the most horrifying way possible. But here's where it gets complicated. The zombies in Dead Set operate on mob mentality. One zombie brushes a hand against a door handle, another sees it and tries harder, and that triggers the first one to escalate. Before you know it, you've got waves of bodies smashing through barricades that were never built to handle that kind of pressure. The house has walls, sure, but it's a television set, not a military compound. And then there's the human element, which is somehow worse. These people were literally conditioned by reality TV to backstab each other. That's the whole point of Big Brother. Form alliances, break alliances, vote people out. It's the worst possible training for cooperative survival. Housemates turn on each other, people get bitten, and the infected start attacking from inside the house. The threat isn't just outside the walls, It's sitting on the couch next to you. The whole series is only 5 episodes long, and that tells you everything about the survival timeline. This isn't a rebuild civilization scenario. This is a how long can you hold one building scenario. You can't evacuate. You can't resupply. You're stuck with finite food, finite patience, and a population selected specifically for being dramatic and confrontational. The reason it ranks this high is the accidental advantage. If you're inside when it starts, you have walls, you have time, and the zombie threat is genuinely manageable until the horde builds critical mass. You just have to hope nobody opens the door on eviction night. But if you think surviving in a confined space with terrible people sounds rough, wait until you see what happens when the apocalypse gets a sense of humor. Z Nation. Here's where things start looking up. For the first time on this list, I'm not immediately calculating how fast I'd die. I'm actually thinking about what I'd do with my second year of survival. That's a huge shift. Z Nation runs for 5 seasons, and the entire premise is a ragtag group of survivors transporting the only known plague survivor across the entire continent, coast to coast, through zombie-infested America, and they pull it off. That alone tells you everything about this universe. In most of the worlds we've covered, walking to the next town is a death sentence. In Z Nation, you can road trip across the country if you're clever enough. The ZN1 virus was likely created intentionally by Dr. Walter Kurian at Fort Collins, Colorado under the codename Red Death, transmitting through bites, scratches, or infected bodily fluids. Standard stuff. The base zombies are your classic single-minded flesh devourers, neutralized only by traumatic brain injury. Predictable, manageable. There's no airborne spore nonsense, no universal infection hiding in your bloodstream. You avoid the bite, you avoid the problem. Now, the variants are where it gets spicy. Climbers can scale fences and walls, which is, not ideal for anyone whose survival plan involves climb something tall. Roamers show actual problem-solving intelligence and use tools. Lurkers go dormant and ambush you when you walk past, like the world's worst surprise party. And blasters are nuclear-affected zombies created by atomic blasts, which sounds terrifying until you realize they're incredibly rare and mostly regional. All the variants are. They're the exception, not the rule. But here's the real survival mechanic nobody talks about: the tone. Z Nation is a horror comedy drama, and that comedy element fundamentally changes how the universe operates. This world rewards cleverness and ingenuity. Characters come up with ridiculous solutions to impossible problems, and those solutions actually work. In The Walking Dead, one wrong step and you're dinner. In Z Nation, one wrong step and you stumble into a solution you didn't even know existed. Survivors here maintain enough organizational capacity to form communities, develop vaccination research, and execute long-term strategic missions. People aren't just surviving. They're rebuilding. They're actively working toward a cure. That's optimism on a level that doesn't exist in most zombie fiction. For the first time on this list, I'd actually feel good about my chances. Give me a decent group, a vehicle, and a baseball bat, and I think I make it. But if Z Nation has me feeling cautiously hopeful, the next universe is going to have me feeling downright relaxed. Daybreak. This is the one. This is the apocalypse where I'm not just surviving, I'm thriving. I'm picking out furniture. I'm starting a book club. Because Daybreak's version of the end of the world is so laughably manageable that the biggest threat to your life is getting stuffed in a locker by a bunch of teenagers in football pads. Here's the setup. Whatever caused the apocalypse wiped out most of the adult population, but left the kids and teenagers completely intact, which means the entire post-apocalyptic power structure is built around high school cliques. The athletes became a gang called the Jocks. The cheerleaders reorganized into the Cheermazons, which is honestly a better name than anything a military strategist has ever come up with. And the gamers became the game overs. That's the threat landscape. Recognizable social hierarchies you've been navigating since you were 14. And yes, there are zombies. Sort of. They're called ghoulies, and they function more like background noise than an actual extinction event. They don't form hordes. They don't evolve. They don't sprint at you like they just heard a dinner bell. They're an environmental hazard, like potholes or wasps at a barbecue. The main villain is Baron Triumph, who sounds terrifying until you find out he's actually the former high school principal with brain damage. He hunts and terrorizes survivors. Sure, but he doesn't command zombie armies or control territory through military force. He's one guy with a grudge and a head injury. I don't know what to tell you. Meanwhile, the guy who thrives in this world is Josh Wheeler, a Canadian high school outcast with zero combat training whose survival strategy consists of being naturally self-sufficient, weirdly charismatic, and willing to team up with a 10-year-old pyromaniac and his former bully who decided to become a pacifist samurai. That's the recipe for success. Be awkward, make weird friends, and don't pick fights with the cheerleader army. The setting is urban Glendale, California, where the infrastructure still works. Shelter exists, Tools exist. Food sources remain accessible. Nobody's boiling rainwater or eating rats. The comedy drama tone of the entire show practically guarantees that the universe wants you to survive. The worst day in Daybreak is a Tuesday in The Walking Dead. If a regular, awkward Canadian teenager can build a functioning social network and navigate gang politics in this world, literally anyone watching this video could do the same. This is the apocalypse I'd pick every single time. No hesitation. Give me the ghoulies, give me the locker threats, give me the high school politics. I'll take all of it over a single clicker in a dark hallway. If you enjoyed this video and want to see everything The Walking Dead gets wrong about zombies, click the video on the screen now.